Good morning, everyone. Mike Rada speaking here again with my guests. And today, Bill and Kevin. And that's all. We don't need any surnames. And this is why you cannot forget them as I did every time. But we had a lot of discussions. And I would like to come back again, like the last time, to my noon live audio session called Power of Touch, because today we spoke about work and it was very interesting again. So I would like to ask both of you what what make the work meaningful for you to start this discussion. Bill.
So I have worked for many reasons. When I had three children at home, I worked to put shoes on their feet and a roof over their head. It almost didn't matter what I did. I would dig ditches if I had to accomplish that. Uh, Now that they are out and productive members of society, I can choose what I like to do. So I think the first lesson is that my purpose changes, it evolves. And now I work. I work to contribute, whether it's advising a client on how to plan strategically better, or if it's babysitting my grandchildren. I work to contribute.
I changed the way I worked a few years ago. I've been working for other companies all my working life, and then stopped working to write a book, and then wound up writing two books, and then started working again, but for myself. And then it's no longer work; it's just part of life. So I work to stay alive. It may sound stupid, but it's it's I'm in a place where you can't separate work from life. The two are so intertwined, and I don't think everyone can achieve that. But I'm certainly very happy with the situation so far.
So can we say that the meaningfulness of work came when the silo of work and silo of private disappear, creating one environment?
That's a good way of putting it.
And that we came back generally to one of the topics from last discussion when we talk about the nature outside and inside of us, so nature of us. And we are again on the same topic. So it's quite interesting.
Okay. And I think the interesting thing about this kind of work is that it doesn't feel like you're wasting time.
And what is interesting, generally, you don't feel the time. You start to work, and then you realize it's 6 hours later. You are not tired, because this is exactly what the children have in the very early stage. They don't understand the meaning of time. They don't know the watch. They don't know whether they see black night and white day, but they don't realize this. And this is exactly how generally the children dive into what they are doing. They dive inside. And this is exactly what I think the meaningful work does. That we dive into it, we forget time, we forget space, we concentrate on the task, and then we deliver the best results because it's something what we really love to do in some way.
We've used the word engaging with workers or team players. How engaged are they? Are they fully engaged? Are they not engaged at all? And I think that goes to what you were saying when you're doing something you love. When Kevin is writing, the time he looks up, he says, "How did it get to be 4 hours later?" Um, and 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 that's fully engaged, full as close to 100% as you're going to get.
And I think one funny thing is, like Bill, I'm also a strategist. And the great thing is that you always need to be gathering new information. You just never know when it's going to be needed. And so the job never ends. So it is simply a case of you always need to be taking in this, taking in that, because it is surprising how often what would seem to be completely useless information becomes extremely valuable.
Right, right.
But it means that if you ask the employees just deliver without taking, so just doing something without thinking about the alternatives, you generally cut the person from the possibility to deliver the meaningful job.
Right.
I don't know
Listen.
if we talked about this last time, but in Denmark, they did a survey and they asked workers in general, not people in creative businesses, but just normal businesses, what is the most important thing they bring to their job? And the number one thing everybody brought to their job was creativity. Which I think is a really, it's a wonderful way, because if you're bringing creativity to whatever job it is, you're more engaged with the job, you're contributing to the job, you're adapting the job to suit yourself.
I am surprised about this answer because I will expect that majority bring their hands, because especially my country turned into the manufacturing hub of Europe. You know, we are quite cheap comparing to the West, not to the East, but to the West. We are quite cheap. The labor is cheap. A lot of workers here came from Ukraine, which is even a cheaper hands, came here, living here, even before the war. And so we are being asked generally not to be creative at all, because your task is to put these two screws there, and you have 25 seconds to do that. If you don't, you fail. You will be fired and the next one will come. So this is why I'm surprised. I will expect this answer in a creative job, but not in the standard ones.
And managers, not leaders, but managers also are in their silo. They don't want the workers to be thinking. Leave the thinking to us. I've heard that a million times.
Yes. I do remember very well this sentence. Don't think. On the other hand, I say to drivers, or I said to drivers of the trucks, you should not load the trucks. It's not your work. You should drive the truck and be a really great driver. Because there is the creativity. And there is one interesting point. I have a discussion a few years ago with one of the EUC riders generally, who is working close to here. He's 56, slightly older than me. Tall guy, 2.20 m, and he rides electric unicycle. You know, it's crazy to look at him. But we talk about the electric trucks, about the self-driving trucks. And he said, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. They say all the time that they develop the trucks autonomous for the drivers. But for me, I'm driving the truck because I love to drive. I love to steer. I love to be on control. Even exchange the tires, I will do it myself. But when they do it autonomous or semi-autonomous, what I will do? I will lose the love to something which I do for 30 or 40 years.
That's an argument that we hear a lot about autonomous vehicles and mobility subscriptions and so on. And I think it is similar to the argument that we heard in the early 1800s with the first factories and machines, and the group in England called the Luddites, who would break into factories and smash the machines. And in fact, what happens is that the workers rise to a new level, and they use their understanding and appreciation for running a machine or driving a truck, and they they marry that up with new skills, maybe the skills of coding or programming, maybe the skill of designing a better truck engine or new skills. So when the factory, one of my clients, we developed a strategic plan for 2030 that included a lights out factory. And so the question was, well, what happens to all those workers who right now are pulling a switch? Here's this poor worker who is in quality control, and they take this molded part off of the machine, inspect it, and place it either here or here. It's a go, no go. Can you imagine doing that for 8 hours? I can't imagine doing that. But they're exactly the type of person that if they just had the skill to engage machine learning or AI, that would do it for them and not get tired after 8 hours or after 2 hours, and could run 24 hours a day. How much more valuable they would be because they understand what this is. Some kid right out of college or newly starting hasn't the foggiest idea why that's being measured and what the variations might be and what causes the variations. But that person knows. So I'm not too concerned about fewer jobs because of automation or fewer truck drivers because of autonomous trucks. I am much more interested in how do we upskill the workers and how do we upskill the managers so they're not counting piecework to see how 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 good the workers are doing. It's not the piecework, it's the quality, and it's the next generation of that piece that is important. I'll get off my soapbox.
I have an interesting story about where technology meets human beings, and the two didn't quite go so well. It was with a famous German electronics company making white goods. And the trend was to make more and more intelligent things. And it got to the point where, and the lovely thing about, especially about the German market, is they're prepared to spend the extra money to buy the best. So when you're in a shop and you're looking at 4 kettles, you're going to buy the one which you can control from your telephone. Because you're mostly a German man, you're making the buying decision, you're going to buy this one because the technology is just wonderful. And then what happened was that this company was getting more and more complaints saying, why did you sell me a kettle that can be controlled by my telephone? Because there is no point. We don't use it. It is a total waste of my money and my time and my resources. And I'm really angry with you. What are you going to do about it? Which I thought was wonderful.
It is. Because we buy how much percentage of the skills of your smartphone can you use? 5%, 10%? It's really, the young people can use more than this. We are not so adaptable anymore, so we use maybe 20, but it's not the way.
So Kevin, if you take that story and match it with the conversation we had last week about nature. Because when you talk about what do we need, we don't need a kettle that you can turn on with your cell phone. And the further we can get ourselves away from these layers of complexity, which are self-imposed, we do that to ourselves, and get away from that and get back to go outside and walk in the grass with your bare feet, please, and then come back in and we'll finish the conversation. We need to get closer to nature, and it's all up here. It's all up here, which is the same way as the waste-free world. It's all up here. So it feels like whether we're talking about autonomous trucks or lights out factories or pots that you can turn on with your cell phone. We're all talking about nature in some way. And that's a thought I'm going to have to develop because that just came out of my mouth without me thinking. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
But
But
I think,
nature is the center if we can just focus on it.
and one thing for sure, nature is it is all about the survival of the fittest. And a telephone-controlled kettle is not the fittest.
Generally, I will not buy this type of kettle for one reason. What if I switch it off from the house and there is no water inside? Then I burn my flat if there is not some special protection or whatever. So the risk of remote control something which needs additionally something to be safe, for me it will be quite, let's say, risky, because I can make the fail. Because it will be my fail that I did not put the water inside before. So, but I like the example of nature, and in general, nature does not look. In fact, in nature does not survive the strongest or best.
Right.
No,
Right.
strongest those who are most adaptable, who are generally called as agile. Until today, I don't know what it means generally. It's quite a new word in the vocabulary here. So, but it's not the strongest one. It's the one who can really adapt.
I have a great Christmas story. On Christmas evening in the morning, which is the big cooking day, our dishwasher broke down. And this is perfectly bad timing. So my wife looked in the telephone directory and found an emergency plumber and called him. And he said, "Listen, lady, that's not an emergency." And she said, "Don't you tell me what an emergency is." And again, it's a question of adaptability. I mean, we weren't going to adapt to being able to live without a dishwasher on Christmas morning.
Well, that's what you have teenagers for.
Yeah, that's true. But the problem
roll
is,
up your sleeves.
yeah, but the training time will go well into the new year.
Yeah, right. So the survival of the fittest, Michael, reminds me of a response that a famous anthropologist once said when they were asked, "What is the first sign of civilized man?" And he expected her to say fire or the wheel or something like that. She said the first sign of civilized man was a thigh bone, a skeleton, and the thigh bone had healed. Because in caveman times, if you broke your leg, you're dead. You're dead. You could not keep up. You're dead. But this was a sign that somebody had said, we can bring him back. We can make him whole again. And I thought that was a great example, because when you say survival of the fittest or the most able to adapt, somewhere in there, in that definition, there needs to be humanity, which is a tough word to define. Humanity of helping somebody survive, heal, something like that. It's a big concept that I'm struggling to wrap my head around.
I mentioned last time that there has been a presidential election in my country. I was not really happy about one of the candidates. And the good news, soon I will have a new vinyl record here on the wall with the new president. And yes, I hope that it is the step in the right direction. This is, I just have to put it because I just saw it here behind me, and I will be proud to have here the next president of my country, made out of vinyl record yesterday. I have saw the design. Will be nice. So we will have one more man here in the room to discuss with us. And unfortunately, Ellen, which is the AI expert, did not. She probably does not have the time to join us. So we have to find another lady to join the discussion.
We are three old white men, and we need some diversity.
Let's see who it will be. We have talked just before you joined, Kevin. We have talked about the fashion industry, which I had a talk yesterday and today again, which is a wasteful, really big wasteful business. From 10 pieces in the fast fashion, generally, they already count that from 10 pieces of t-shirts, they will sell 3 for the full price, 2 will be sold with a reduced price, and 5 will be wasted. That's the basic calculation. And they do it for a long time. This is why there is so much waste out of the fashion industry. And if we speak only about it, we are speaking only about the ready-made products, but there is a lot of waste in the production itself as well. And there is right now a very interesting initiative which would like to really aim globally the reduction of the wasting in the fashion industry. And I just wonder, I know that men don't need so much clothing because we are 3 men. But the question is whether the change of the mindset, which is needed generally to reduce as well the waste volumes, whether we can apply it to a specific, group of people. And I'm not only asking about women generally. We can speak here about the politics. We can speak about, let's say, a group of people. Do you think it is a better approach to go for all people on the planet, or to go step by step and inform every single one about the possibilities of changing the mindset and improving the sustainability?
Good question. In the book, we look at 5 industries. We look at healthcare, education, mobility, energy production, and food and agriculture. And the type of waste in each one is different, which was surprising to me. I thought that if we looked at one, we could just relate it to the others. There is some relating you can do, but generally, the people who speak about food and agriculture waste are approaching it very differently than the people who talk about education waste or energy production waste. And because of that, I would be tempted to say, Michael, that we should not take it incrementally, explaining as we go, but rather keep it at the what they like to call the 30,000 foot level, at the macro level, and keep it simple, understandable, and go to as many people as possible. And as they listen and as their mindset adapts to this new way of looking at it, then they will say, oh, I'm in the shoe industry, or I'm in the whatever industry it might be, and be able to apply that simple approach to the specifics of what they're working on. So that's my off the cuff answer.
I think we need to help the consumers much more understand what they're doing. I know there is, and I think Hennes and Mauritz has already done this. There is a company in Sweden which makes labels for products, but the labels say how much energy was involved in making the product, how much CO2 was generated, how much waste was generated, was there any exploitation, and how will this thing be disposed of? And I think that if all our clothing was labeled like that, then we are able to be told, okay, this is the average for the part of the world you live in. This metric here, if you cross that, then you're exploiting the planet unreasonably. And actually give people a scale so that they can control their buying. They can say, well, you know, if I buy 3 cheap t-shirts, they're going to cause this much damage. If I buy 1 expensive one, it will last 3 times longer. So it's actually better for the planet to buy this one. And to get people to think completely differently about what they're buying. So they're not just buying a product, but they're buying consequence of the products.
I love that.
The question is, isn't the consequence too far? In the meaning, you know, just a few days ago, yesterday or day before yesterday, there was announced that one of these carbon credit sellers or creators or whoever, I think called Vera, I'm not sure about the name, that they sold millions and I think even billions in credits to that, which will improve the Amazon forest. At the end, it was found that 95% was fake, or 90%. I don't remember the numbers exactly.
I saw the same article.
If there will be, and already now we have the, at least in my country, we have the labels for example, for the electricity consumption of a product. We try to find out a fridge which A+++. And we learned that A+++ is better. When everyone in the country learned this, they changed the system. It's not anymore called A+++ because there was too much plus and it stayed too much place. So they changed the system. And it's generally, it reminds me, if you go to retail chain store, then you will see, and you are used where bread is and where fruits are and so on. And usually in my country, it's done that 1 or 2 per year, they change the layout completely. And they did not do it because they would like to improve your selling experience. They would like you to go again through the shop and look for things, because on the way you may buy something different as well. And I don't worry that the labeling itself, because I haven't seen a single LCA analytics. I haven't seen a single carbon credit calculator who calculated correctly. Because I see it from the perspective of logistic, production, and all the stuff. And there is a lot of things are missing in these calculators. And when I walk through the factories and they have the walls lined with KPMG and Deloitte and Price Waterhouse, and everybody has a certificate. And at the end, you go out and there's a landfill.
But I think there's 2 kinds of brands. There's the kind of brand which is going to get conscientious consumers. And these are the honest brands. These are the brands that are going to make the difference. And these are the brands that are going to have loyalty and engagement with their customers. And then there's the rest. And I mean, there's nothing we can do with the rest except make brands that compete against them with
I will say,
future generated.
I will say, would there be a, if we speak about us, okay, let's go to buy a new t-shirt. Will you look at we cannot recognize the material, we can touch it, but we don't know whether it's well washable or so. But would it be an argument for you if there will be written, this t-shirt is for you for 10 years, 2 years? Or there will be, it's just single use? I will choose the longer life cycle.
Yeah.
And we have right now the 10 minutes, I think. So still it's valid. I don't know, it's 10 minutes. So I will choose for myself. Of course, I will touch the material because I love the material to touch. And I recognize sometimes from the experience. But I will go for the longer life. But can we expect that it will be done by everyone? For some will be it will have just one time because I will be the special one because I can have every day a new one. What will be the bigger group?
there's always going to be a lot of different choice. But I think that engaging with brands and giving brands a longer life, there is only one way to go, and that is to get customers on their side who believe in their products. And I'm just guessing, but most of the clothes I buy is Japanese, because I assume that it's going to be longer lasting, and it's going to be, the production process is more responsible. And that's just my choice. But if we can help people make these choices, then it's a step in the right direction.
Sorry, but one question to this. Would this image of the waste somehow projected, don't ask me how projected, but of the waste means I take this shirt and I will look at the damage which I support, or I look at the wasteless world which I support. I think that will be, and I think it cannot be created by the label. I think it must be something, a story behind. And again, it's hard to tell the stories and so on, but we are living in a digital world. So because yesterday we have spoken about the digital passports, even for clothing. They are being introducing it right now for batteries for the EV cars generally. And I have heard the opinion that the passports, the digital passports serve to control the people, to control the batteries, to control your behavior, to switch it off if you will not behave right. So, but they are tools, let's come back to this. They are tools how we can improve, but it's not about tracking the goods itself, but projecting the real impact of my purchase. I think this is the right description which we should look for.
I suspect that it's probably already here. It's coming to give people more information. There are certain brands who do that very well. There's in this country, we have a company by the name of Patagonia. Perhaps you have it there as well. And they have a very strong earth message. They have a very strong humanity message. And I think we were going to see that more and more. And I think as time goes on, not only will it gather momentum, but the newer generations, the younger people, the 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds are much more in favor of or looking for things such as purpose, environmental protection, and so on, than I ever was in the 1960s or 70s. So I think there are several different forces that are going to move that along, and I think that the world in 2030 or 2040, as far as how we make our choices, and we're seeing that today. When I'm going to get political here for a minute, I don't buy things from China. And there are several reasons, and it was, that goes back several years, because I've done business in China, and their concept of quality, for example, is very different from what I'm used to. So I avoid that, and I think that there's going to be more and more of that. I heard someone being criticized because they had purchased something from that was made in Russia. Right? So the politics also enters into our choices, and the marketing people, as they are shaping their brands, are going to be increasingly emphasizing things such as the environment and purpose and humanity, I believe.
And there's one thing I was just thinking about, is I bought a pair of English shoes. And they say, when you get the shoes, keep the box, keep the bags that it comes in, because once they're worn out, send them back to us. We will rebuild the shoe and send it back to you again.
I love it.
Yeah, this is really cool. But you think 50, 60 years ago, in most towns, there'd have been quite a few cobblers doing exactly that. Whereas these days, if we wear out a pair of shoes, they're thrown away. And it's same with jeans, shirts. You know, in the old days, there was the skill and the availability to, you know, if you'd worn out the ass of your jeans, they could repair that. It's not a problem. But we're just not used to that any longer. We're not used to extending the life of what we bought. We just simply throw it away.
And I think you just hit the right point. We have to get used to the quality again, because we change the quality for quantity. Being pushed by the, as Bill mentioned it very well, by the marketing guys who will use anything which will help them to sell more. You know, yesterday was announced 100 million fund, Industry 5.0 funding. 100 million US dollars yesterday.
So you're a rich man now, Michael.
No, it was announced by a company called Momenta, and there is written it's Industry 5.0 introduced by European Commission.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, you know, they are just using the term, they are speaking about protecting citizens, protecting intellectual properties, protecting whatever. They are the first one who steal the ideas, use it as a sales tools. And this is why I think that waking up the awareness, especially from schools up, from education systems up, and so on, really grow up the people with the understanding, even using the digital technology the right way to help them to understand. There are tools like you look at the t-shirt and it will show you where it was produced, whether there is some dangerous material inside or whatever. There are a lot of things like this already. And I think this is the way how really utilize the existing things which we have, maybe give it another function. And as I said before, to prefer quality instead of quantity by understanding what quality is. And I think this message must be delivered again to the people. You know, for none of you was a TV, was a consumable. We have it so long as it was playing and repaired and it was black and white and we don't care because we saw the colored world in it. And today it broke, it breaks, and you buy new one because it's so cheap and you go to the next shop and you will buy new one. You even don't care. So we have only 1.5 minute time. And I would like to ask you to meet again after in our standard secret hideout where nobody can enter online. And what are your final words? 1 minute.
I was thinking about what Bill was saying about China. I think that any goods that come in from anywhere, they should have a simple label on them saying, this can be repaired, this can't be repaired.
And beyond that, I think that every time we design anything from a t-shirt to the next automobile, the plan, the engineers at the end of that design documentation should have a page that says, here are 10 things that you can do with this cell phone or this t-shirt when the value that you see in it is no longer there. Rather than throwing it out, you can repurpose it this way, you can reuse it that way, you can repair it that way. And here's 10 things. And everybody should be thinking, every designer should be thinking what those are when they're designing something. And we need to, Amazon did that. Tremendous waste out of Amazon. I get a box in the mail, and it's because here's 5 things you can do with this box when you're finished using it. One was give it to your kids to use as a fork. Great idea. And then there were 5 more things. So we need to be thinking like